So a family member called us about a week ago. A tree fell down in their yard. Sugar gum, which is a species I haven't worked before. So me and my dad are going to go grab the trunk of the tree. So I thought it'd be a good thing to bring y'all along to show y'all how I begin the processing of all the bowls I make for Christmas time. Because it's January and this is the time of the year that you need to be harvesting your trees. Now, all y'all know, my dad and I take different approaches to how we wood turn. I do a lot of production work. I'm going for basic, simple stuff. I prefer logs of trees. 4-foot to 8-foot log sections I can keep solid until I get ready to process it. My dad goes for a lot more exotic stuff, the burls, the crotches of trees, the stuff that would good figuring, the kind of stuff that doesn't roll. So while I will load up a set of ramps to get the logs on the tree, and I'll show you more how I do that in a second as I show you how I prep up, let me show you how Dad likes to do it. Now, because Dad is deadlifting stuff, he got this a hydraulic lift from Amazon that will just deadlift stuff off to the bed and then we can scoot it in there. The hard part is getting up to bed level, but a lot of the stuff he likes to get just doesn't roll. So this is your only option unless you're really, really strong. Because I prefer logs that roll, that's where the ramps come in. Because I can put 2 ramps in here, and part of my bug out kit is this bag, which has an electric winch in it and a bunch of straps. So I'll actually put straps hooked to the back of the bed underneath the log and put the winch back here and we'll kind of roll the log up. Let me show you what else is in our bug out bag. First off is 2 cans of gas. I really like these newfangled ones with a push button that turn things on and off. This particular one is 1.25 gallons. I like that one because I don't use it a lot. So I buy those little premix canisters of oil for my chainsaw. So I can actually just drop 1 gallon in here and then fill it up and mix it up. And I just do 1 gallon at a time. The other gas can is just regular gas. And I do try to find ethanol-free gas because it will keep a little bit longer, especially if it's mixed at all. This stuff basically only mix up what you're going to use on your trip if at all possible. Next is the bug out box. This one kind of got left outside for a little bit, so I'm going to move it all over to a new toolbox I had. And what we keep in here is bar oil for the chainsaws. Both Dad and I, we kind of go cheap on the bar oil, but expensive on the gas and oil that gets mixed up. Here are Dad's sharpened blades, and here are some used blades that he just didn't sharpen that last time. We have one big mallet right here. Along with that mallet, we have some steel wedges and some plastic wedges. We got a bunch of tools for the chainsaws. I got extra oil and a sharpening setup, plus a pry bar because sometimes those little things get wedged in there. You want to move them, so you want to be able to unwedge them out. And then other sharpening utensils, such as this Timberline set sharpening jig. Now, I will say I generally use, a file and stuff like that to touch up out in the field, but there's a lot of stuff where you hit rocks or something like that, and you kind of want to reset the entire chain. This thing right here, which is a kit, has carbide grinding wheel. It kind of resets everything back to a baseline, and I like that one because I'm not the most accurate file sharpener. So, I can go 2 or 3 times file sharpening, and then this just kind of resets everything. So I want to take that with me. And since I did just pick me up a new chainsaw, I'm going to try. They have this setup right here. I've never used that one before for sharpening. I like to try that. And I bought some chains for my chain. A lot of times it's just easier to swap out a chain if it's really bad damage out in the field. Some more wedges, more chainsaw and bar tools, and the invoice for all that. Eesh. You're gonna want some gloves and hearing protection, and Dad always wears chaps. Admit it, I don't wear this kind of protection all the time, but he's taking his. Now we're going to be taking 2 chainsaws, and I need to tell you right now, this is a luxury thing. I had a good month on one of my videos last year, so I bought a setup so I could do some chainsaw milling. So that's why I have such a huge saw. The other saw we're using is a 50cc 22-inch chainsaw, and that served us good for almost a decade now. And before this one, I had a 311, if you know what that is. I just wore it out, and I just got tired of rebuilding it. So when I had a little bit of cash, I splurged, and I got a pretty big chainsaw milling one. It's got a long blade on it right now. For this kind of work, I'll probably put the smaller blade on it just for cross cutting, because from my understanding the tree is already down, and we're just going to go get the logs and bring them back and process them later. So 2 chainsaws, a big monster and a more reasonable 50cc-er. So the next morning, everything's loaded up. Been on the road for a couple hours now. Normally I try to stick a little bit closer to my home, simply because it's a marketing thing. I can say that this is all local wood, but this is going to a family member. So I wanted to briefly talk about, what I look for in logs. First off, I like a specific size. I like something that's going to barely fit in the back of my bed and totally weight it down with 1 or 2 logs. That's because you're going to get straighter grain in that kind of tree. I appreciate that type of grain. Dad, on the other hand, being an artist, going for the artistic side, he kind of likes, the crotch of a tree closer down by the root ball because of the figure and stuff like that. And a lot of times on smaller trees, you can get a little bit more compact figure. You get more of it in the bigger trees, but sometimes it just looks better in the medium to smaller trees. So he goes for that kind of stuff more often. The key thing is, I prefer to get a tree when it is just fresh cut down. This tree we're going to get right now fell over, and from the pictures that were shown me, it was bucked up into like 6 to 8 foot sections, which I'll have to cut down a little bit to get in the back of my bed because I tend to roll them up sideways. So I have to be able to fit them in between my wheel wells, which is about 4 feet. That right there will give me a lot of bowl blanks, and most of my furniture pieces are going to be shorter than that too. So that's a perfect size for me. But the reason why I want it fresh and preferably cut down in winter is because of water, the moisture content. Basically, if you cut it down in spring or summer, there's a lot of water coming through it all the time. So there's just more water in it, and that water will dry out quicker, and it tends to crack quicker. If you take a tree in winter time, well, basically all the water has come down to the canopy. There's not a lot of nutrients going back and forth. It's all down in the roots. So the wood itself is drier to begin with. So when you cut it, it won't crack as fast. But if you wait, even a few days, those end cracks are going to start if you don't seal it. You wait a few weeks, those cracks will come in, 6 inches to 12 inches. But if you have, a 4, 8, 12 foot log, you can always cut off those ends and use the parts of those ends that aren't cracked for boxes and stuff like that, and still get a good blank. But you wait too much longer than that, and cracks start to come from the side of the tree, not only the end of the tree, and that crack might not be where you want it to be. If the pith of the tree isn't in the dead center, a lot of times you have to slice it at a specific angle, and if the crack is in an odd angle to what you want, you're just stuck with it. So that is why I prefer getting to the tree as fast as it comes down. And I've only had this in a few times, but ideally you have a land person that's saying, hey, we're going to be clear cutting this in a week or two. Go out there, find something that you like, cut it down. You can leave the canopy there, just take what you need. Bulldozers are going to be coming by and making a burn pit, so it doesn't really matter to me. Just go grab what's useful to you. And being able to drop a tree and take the best parts of it without some landscaper cutting it up for their crane use or something like that, that's ideal. That's perfect. this is a situation that the tree's already on the ground. So when we get there, we'll take a look at it. So what we got is a sweet gum, probably not as big as we originally thought, but if you notice, the ends are not cracked because it's been cut down a few days or a week, and they did section up some of the parts. Not quite big enough to make bowls out of, or salad bowls, but individual bowls would be just fine, but maybe some out of that one right there would be just fine. So we're going to go ahead and try and get these loaded up. Now obviously this log right here is longer than will fit in my truck bed, and I like to get it down to 4-foot sections so I can roll it up and slide it in between the wheel wells. So the first thing to do is mark out 4 feet, then we'll cut it and start rolling. It's been a year since we've done this, so I was missing a few things, mainly the things that attach my truck bed on the corners right there and there. So I'm just using my bike straps to do it. This doesn't require a lot of force. We got the tree and a wrap going underneath it, attaching the 2 corners. So as it rolls out, the triangle will keep it stable, and then a winch attached to one of the things. So now Dad's just going to hit the button. We're just going to roll it right up. Granted, this is a lot more impressive when the logs are about this high and it just kind of hits my maximum weight limit, just loading one of them in there, but hey, it'll demonstrate the technique. So that's how it's done when you need really heavy stuff, but for the rest of these, we're just gonna manually roll them up. They're light enough we can do it this time. But that's the advantage of having the ramps. Roll it up, don't lift it. Now people, the other way you can get logs into your truck is have a good neighbor with a Kubota.
A nice toy.
A nice toy.
Yeah, this is Paul. Papa's toy.
Paul was able to get these 7-foot ones up over, just bring them on over. Look at how white this is. Sweet gum might be pretty cool. But the problem with loading stuff up that you can't lift yourself with, a Kubota or something like that, is you've now got to unload it. So how do we do that one? Well, we're a bit lucky here. I have a little bit of room in the backyard and we have other trees. So the idea is we are going to anchor off of another tree very low to the ground. You don't want to do it up high because that just gets leverage and you're just going to pull the tree over. So from there, we're just going to drag out from underneath it. Now notice I put a log down underneath my tire so that as that drags forward and drops down, it's going to land on this side of the log. And then as I move farther forward, we'll put another log right about there. That way that sweet gum will stay off the ground, so it'll give me a little bit more time to process it. After that, I'll show you how we'll stack the other stuff right on top of that to keep them even higher. Now, this might sound strange to a lot of new woodworkers when you are drying your own wood. You go out and capture it and dry it out for use. We actually want to prevent water from coming out, and it comes out quickest from the end grain. We want it to release from the log evenly. And you can tell right here, we were really lucky in that it's been very rainy and humid in the area that this tree was cut down. But even in that environment, north of Houston, within a week, you can see these cracks are already starting. So I can pretty much guarantee that at least 12 inches of this log right here is probably trash, just pure firewood. I've got to get past those cracks. Whereas the log I cut literally yesterday has already started to crack right along here, which is actually not ideal. I want to split it slightly off to balance it, well, personal preference. So somehow I want to prevent the water from coming out of the log, the end of the log. So that's where we apply our log condom. So I've tried all different types in past years, you know, latex paint, the glue water mixture, that kind of stuff. And by far the absolute best I've found has been Anchor Seal. I know it's a name brand. I know it's a little bit pricey for what it is, but you don't end up using as much of it as the other stuff. And here's my thinking. If it's 20 bucks more a gallon and you save one extra bowl out of each log, it is paid for itself. And that 1 gallon is going to cover several trees. So to me, it's penny wise, pound foolish to try the other stuff. Granted, right now I'm trying a alternative from Rockler, but that's just because we bought it to try it out, and I'm just using up the last of it. I just like the original Anchor Seal for this kind of stuff, not the new stuff, the original old stuff. And it's as simple as just kind of slathering it on and letting it dry. It just seals up all the pores so water can't come out the end. So it's been almost 2 years now, and this has been kind of negligent of me. I haven't really wanted to process these trees yet. Main reason is they just really aren't big enough for the kind of stuff I do, and I'll explain that in a second. But that aging process did give us a little bit more information for you so we can experiment out that, because these have just been sitting outside in probably the worst setting. It is under trees, so it's not direct sunlight, but it does get some sunlight during the day. And you might notice a purple pole out there. That's a septic system, so it probably gets sprayed down with water fairly frequently. I know when we first got it, I was walking around, and anytime I found a mushroom or something like that, I was throwing them over on this pile because the wood was so white when we cut it, I thought it would look really cool spalted. I also left one piece down on the ground, and we can see that it's decayed quite a bit more to get some of that spalting from the ground source and stuff like that, because the more different species of mushrooms you get growing and propagating through the wood, the more colors you're going to get. At least that's how I've learned from pecan. Oftentimes I will roll a log around in the backyard every few weeks for, you know, a good 6 months, and that's when I did that one, that's probably the prettiest bowl I've ever turned. So right now, these have been sitting outside. This is still pretty good wood. You don't have to worry about it. In this state, logs can sit for years and still have something workable. Let's take a closer look at what we've got. So with these two sections of the tree, you can see that the pith is slightly offset. But you notice most of the cracks are radiating out from that pith area. So that's why whenever we do cut the wood, we want to get rid of the pith as soon as possible. But you will notice some cracks are starting from the outside coming in. And I mentioned that earlier, that if you don't get to it in time, the outside, these cracks are going to come in. But the wood's still good about 1 inch down, and that is generally the sap wood, which you're not going to be using too much anyways. We would be turning it off most of the time. So when I say I don't really like boards this size, basically I would be coming around here, I would be finding a line that's the longest distance, and I would be drawing that, and that's my midpoint. My first cut would be lining up about 2 to 3 inches off the midpoint, off the pith, to get rid of all this material right here. And that would be my first cut, lining it up from one side of the log to the other. And then you get rid of about this much. You end up with this is the maximum size bowl, which means I'm probably only going to get one bowl out of this each particular blank. Whereas if I had a much larger log, well, I could get 2 or 3 bowls out of each blank, and it becomes much more profitable for me because I don't have to work the blank as much. So my first cut would be here, second cut there, third cut about right there. And I would get 2 blanks for each side. You know, each blank on this size tree would be about that big, and you can count how many times you go down. But these cracks right here mean that the first few inches might be bad, so I might have to come back in. And if you section up a log, the round at this side, and the first 6 inches are bad, you end up with a very small section of wood that you can use. That's why I like to leave them as long as possible before processing them. And if I can, I will process them and get these 2 boards lengthwise airing out the way I want them to do. That will prevent all of these cracks coming from the center. So this is probably the most decayed log on that top batch. It has some mushrooms growing off the side, and you can see all this black stuff coming through here, which means this is going to have some pretty cool coloration. I say it's the worst one because this crack right here is probably the whitest out of all 5 of these, 6 of these right here. And once again, my first cut on this particular log would probably be right here. Second cut right there, and that's going all the way down the log, connecting pith to pith, so I get the straightest grain possible. Third cut, fourth cut, and then I would try to, if any material was left, come right here. So this is waste, this is waste. That's probably too small to do anything with. That's waste, and that's waste for me, for the way I work wood. But I want to use this one as an example because I have a tree branch right here, so the only good portion of this is probably going to be this middle section. This one has a bunch of branches coming off of it, so it's not the kind of wood I like to work with because of what happens to the grain on the inside. So I'm just going to take some cookies off of it, and let's see how many cookies we have to cut before we get back to fairly solid wood outside of this pith area. So there we go, 2 cookies. You know, what's that? Maybe 6 inches with the kerf. We're back down. Still have 1 crack emanating from the pith, but remember, that's a trash area. But pretty much everywhere else, we're down to good wood. And notice the black lines with all the spalting. This is going to be pretty. Now, again, this is a little bit smaller diameter trees than I like to deal with, but I am going to go ahead and process these logs, even though from a financial standpoint, me selling bowls and boxes and stuff from at farmers markets and art markets and stuff like that, it won't be profitable. I do have a couple weddings in my family coming up, and this being a tree from Carla Kay's yard, processed by me and Dad, with me making it something, that might be a pretty nice gift. And I probably won't, if I do bowls, I'll probably give the gift of like 5 eating bowls instead of one nice salad bowl out of this material. Or I might just make some artistic vases and stuff like that, depending upon how the color of the wood comes out. Anyways, that'll be in an upcoming video, maybe in a few weeks. Keep an eye out for that. Either way, I hope y'all picked up a few tips and tricks out of this video. And remember, it's always worth the effort to learn, create stuff, share it with others. Y'all be safe and have fun. Okay, I'm going to assume most of the people out here that are watching this kind of video are probably wood turners. At least they process wood the way I do. And because of that, today's bonus is a new channel, YouTube channel for me, Cube Ranch Woodworks. Can you see that? Focus. I'll put a screenshot over there. Anyways, he seems to do a lot of this ASMR style turning, but there are 2 aspects of his channel that I can appreciate much more than the other ASMR style ones that are just much more popular out there. A lot of them, I think, turn for the spectacle aspect of it and doesn't really teach anything of value. And a lot of the stuff they are making is really good looking right off the lathe, but the techniques they use and the timing they use, it probably blows up over time. What I find unique about what he's doing is he's actually using very good classical turning techniques and photographing it in a way that illustrates those points, and the product he is making is actually of high quality artistic value to it. It would command a good premium on the open market, at least the ones I sell to. And the other thing is, on a lot of his videos, he seems to pull out one little tidbit, and it's not silent turning the entire time. He will do some kind of voiceover to explain a little nugget of information. So you get a lot of entertainment and a little nugget of education. I can appreciate that. I'll put a link down below, Cube Ranch Woodworks.